if we really do get a United States of America national strategic Bitcoin reserve, which I do think could happen, I don't know that it'll be next year, but I do think it may or may not be inevitable over the next couple of years. I think you would see Bitcoin jump $100,000 in price on that announcement.
Okay, welcome everybody to the real relevant agent. I'm a little excited right now, so I almost forgot what the podcast is. We're the relevant agents. Eddie Guarales, my good friend here and brother, and I got another brother here in the room. Feels like a little brother, but in the scope of what we're going to talk about today, I definitely consider him more than a peer. He is very, very versed in the blockchain, Bitcoin, altcoins, real world assets, all this kind of stuff. We're going to dive into that. So without further ado, we got Reid Armor here on. How you doing, Reid?
Doing very well. Had my first caffeine injection, and Bitcoin is above 100K here with you and Eddie. Thanks for having me. Feeling good. Feeling real good.
Yeah, man. Well, we actually did so with my other podcast, the Stoic Agent podcast. You and I did a pod. Man, when was that? Like in November 23? I feel like it's like a year ago or so.
Yeah, about a year ago, and at that point, the news had come out that BlackRock had filed for the ETFs, and we're always looking for signal over noise, and if you need bigger signal, you're not going to find it. That's the largest asset manager in the world filed for a Bitcoin ETF. I started screaming at everyone I know, please start buying this stuff. But yeah, I think that was toward the end of last year, moving into 2024, and it's been interesting what's happened so far this year, and maybe we'll do some predictions for 2025 as well. But yeah, I think it's been a year, Alex.
Yeah, I would like to actually let's get into predictions a little bit later. But yeah, it's I love what you brought up there about I don't know who said it. I think maybe it was Lennon or something about follow the money.
Yeah.
And BlackRock, when Larry Fink got up, I think it was Fox News, and literally said, Bitcoin is a flight to safety. If that wasn't the biggest signal, that that is not noise. That is not somebody on social media or some pundit or whatever with altcoins or what have you. Like that's what are they? They're the largest money manager in the world. What do they have under management?
They're the largest in the world. Yeah, when Larry Fink speaks, everyone listens, not just you and I, all the other big money managers. So yeah, absolutely massive signal, and the number's always changing. It could be 10, could be 13. Let's just call it 11.5 or 12 trillion assets under management. So there you go.
Yeah. And now I think they own 500,000 Bitcoin. I was listening to Saylor the other day, Michael Saylor, head of, CEO of MicroStrategy, and he was a little jealous that Larry Fink owned more, BlackRock owned more Bitcoin than him, but he's certainly trying to make a run at it. So let's dive in here a little bit, man. For the folks that are out there that may have heard about Bitcoin, what would you say if you could define maybe blockchain, which is really the underlying software that Bitcoin runs on? What does blockchain mean to you?
It's a distributed ledger that everybody has access to. It's immutable, it's permanent. Everybody can get on a block explorer and see what it is. Bitcoin is the first digital asset, first digital cryptocurrency. It was launched coming out of the GFC, the global financial crisis in 2008, I think. October 2008, I believe Satoshi Nakamoto, which is anonymous, a pseudonym. We don't know who Satoshi is, and I prefer it stays that way. He put out the Bitcoin white paper in 2008. The network went live in 2009. Bitcoin became the first digital cryptocurrency to go mainstream. Today it's changing every day. You could look it up maybe on like a CoinGecko or a CoinMarketCap. I think there's like 30,000 of these things. these smart contracts that are going to be the rails of the financial future. We probably only need 10, 15, maybe 20. It's going to be really hard to pick which ones are going to power the future. Bitcoin, however, has cemented its legacy as a store of value. It could be considered maybe an alternative to gold, an improvement on gold. We can talk about why it's better. And I also like to think of it as digital real estate. You know, Alex, we live here in Florida, America. We're very blessed. We don't really have to think about these things, but people in all other parts of the world, whether that's the Middle East or some rougher parts of South America or Africa, these war torn places where people have to flee, unfortunately. Well, good luck, taking your gold with you or taking your real estate with you or taking your stocks if you even have them with you. You can't. You put whatever you have in a backpack and you kind of just have to run. The power of Bitcoin is you can put that in your pocket, everything you own in your pocket, or just memorize a seed phrase and take everything with you. So I kind of went on a ramble there. I'll let you come back in.
Yeah, I don't think that's a ramble, man. I think I think it sets a great groundwork. You explained it pretty well there. So I want to kind of maybe dive in a little bit here, because you're a commercial real estate guy, so you're not just like a crypto
Yeah.
investor speculator. You're out there. One of the things that I appreciate about you and Eddie and I, we've been doing real estate for 20 something years. And, we most of this podcast is around how to help real estate agents grow their businesses, grow their teams and so forth. Maybe, one of the things I really respect about you, I say you're a little brother, but you're much taller and as probably is smarter than me in a lot of ways. But let's talk a little bit, and then I want to have Eddie kind of dive in here because it's also how, Eddie and I go back a long ways, but also we started to create some synergy in our thinking around blockchain. And we talked about this, Eddie, I think maybe 3 years ago when we sat down. We knew each other before that. But what are your thoughts on, and Larry Fink mentioned real world assets and kind of the tokenization of everything. What are your thoughts around that?
Uh, I think unfortunately it's going to get rid of a lot of jobs. Title companies come to mind. What it's going to do when he says tokenizing everything, he means taking a piece of real estate, taking a stock, taking a natural resource, and creating a digital representation of that. Let's say I'm sitting here in my house, Alex, and I go and create a digital version of it. And then through whatever protocol, you say, hey, Reid, I like what you got there. I'd like to offer you, 2 Bitcoin for that. And then you can buy my house and there's no third party needed. He's talked about tokenizing the stock market as well. Currently, when you buy a stock, let's say it's a share of Apple or Chipotle or whatever, technically you do own it, but good luck taking possession of it. So with the tokenizing of real world assets, you're going to be able to take possessions of things, and without an intermediary, a third party, you and I are going to be able to exchange them direct, peer to peer. And I know I would actually I would be curious to get your thoughts on that with the RWA sector. I know you've been looking into Proppy, and our guy Grant Cardone has been doing stuff with that token. He's buying these large apartment complexes all over 300 units. That's near and dear to me. I do quite a bit of multifamily. I actually just had a closing yesterday that I came in late last night from. Um, I know he's doing stuff with okay, he's tokenizing this 300 unit class A office apartment in Fort Lauderdale. And instead of wiring him $50,000 or $1 million or whatever his minimum investment is, it's all going to be done on blockchain. Is that right? I know you're looking into this.
Yeah, we actually had Proppy on, Eddie and I, our last episode. So I think I think they're doing some pretty cool stuff. They're kind of they're they're actually acting. I don't know if you knew this. They have an arm that is a traditional title company, right?
Yeah.
And they got some AI that's integrated. So I was thinking about you on that, like Onzo and stuff like that. But yeah, so I think that they're kind of marrying. I think the cool thing about Proppy is they're marrying traditional, but also bringing in blockchain and AI. So they have some pretty cool features within their title platform, the traditional title platform, that integrate the Proppy token, because as an agent, if you actually bring them a closing, they do a good job. It's traditional title and the search and the title insurance and the stuff that I think we maybe the three of us agree that title insurance probably is going to go away because you have that automation of trust. Why do you have to keep insuring this when title's already been done and it's already been established? It's probably kind of a little bit of a grift at this point. But until that becomes mainstream, it is what it is. But yeah, so Proppy, I think, is kind of paving the way and marrying traditional finance world with the blockchain world. So I don't want to take too much of the floor here because I know I can. But Eddie, you do have any kind of thoughts on what we're talking about?
I do. Is actually, I was waiting for you to finish your thought because I was, as I'm listening to you and Reid, I'd love to kick this to you and get your idea, your thoughts on it. But um, I like how Proppy is doing it because for the masses, for people outside of the room that we're in, the three of us right now that have, I would maybe consider a more advanced understanding and outlook on cryptocurrency, blockchain, etc. I like how Proppy is basically morphing into it, right? They're not taking this huge step. They're taking little steps or transitional steps and creating companies, whole companies, to help people understand this transition. And I think that's a smart way to approach it, especially for the masses, especially as you're dealing with such a large commodity or a large market as real estate is. Reid, what do you think that is necessary for the commercial space or larger real estate transactions? Or do you think that the way that Grant's doing it is the leap that we're going to need to take in some of these larger deals?
It's innovative and on the cusp, uh, for sure. If I just look at the resistance that I ran into in trying to get, say, my parents to buy Bitcoin, which I was just absolutely begging them to, late 2022, early 2023, during when all that FTX stuff was going down. And I was like, oh man, this is it. This is the bottom. Get in. It it is just such a big world, and it's very confusing. And we're talking about blockchain and distributed ledgers and smart contracts and decentralized physical infrastructure and real world assets and AI agents and just all this crazy stuff. And like Alex kind of said in the beginning, I'm a commercial real estate broker. I work 9 to 5, typically actually a lot longer than that. If I'm lucky, I get the gym in after that, hang out with my girlfriend, my friends, get some time with my family. I've been studying this space as much as I can for the past 4 years, and I definitely have a better understanding of it than I did when I started, but by no means do I consider myself an expert. And trying to explain even just something as basic as Bitcoin to my parents or even my friends, we are very, very early in this technology. We don't know what it's going to serve yet. We don't know how it's going to function. Bitcoin, as I already stated, has cemented itself as a digital store of value. We can talk about Ethereum or Solana or Proppy or whatever these different things are going to do. But to circle back and answer your question, is it necessary? No. Is it cool? Is it innovative? Absolutely. Are people who are forward thinking going to be like, hey, I like this. This is novel. Let's try this. Yeah, absolutely. But as far as, getting rid of title companies or, tokenizing everything, I think we're probably many, many years away from that. However, it's interesting to be paying attention to, and it's happening. And AI blockchain and crypto and robotics, I would say, are probably the most important things to be paying attention to moving into the future. And you don't need to become an expert on them, but you probably want to start educating yourself as much as you can on them, and possibly making some investments. Might end up working out well for people.
Like your parents.
Yeah. Well, no, it's funny. My dad is in real estate, and he's a business broker actually, and he's a really sharp guy. And I was begging him, please buy Bitcoin. And I think sometime around like when Bitcoin got to like 50, 60,000, um, maybe earlier this year, he got orange pilled, which here in the Bitcoin space, getting orange pilled is kind of the light bulb moment where you kind of discover Bitcoin and you say, wait a second, I think I understand what's happening here. And I have to credit Michael Saylor, who I know we're gonna talk about here. He's got to be the best podcast guest ever. You put a quarter in him, and the guy just talks for 3 hours nonstop, and covers ancient Roman history and the history of money and the entire history of fiat currency. And that is a resource I would point people toward. The "What Is Money" series with Robert Breedlove and Michael Saylor. I credit my orange pilling to that. My dad's orange pilling to that. So for sure, there's still hope for my parents. My mom, she's a bit slower to it, but dad at this point is swing trading it. With three or four of them at a time, and I'm like, Dad, great. I'm glad you're making money, but please, for your future, for my future, hopefully I get to have some children one day's future, just buy some and just put it in cold storage and forget about it for 20, 30 years. I think is the best way to do it.
Yeah. I love that, man. So I think let's also kind of just back up a little bit here. And I love that you outlined how confusing it can be. And so those are some great resources that you talked about there. I've got a couple of really dear friends that I'm in the business here with that I've been talking about it to. They're very bright people, some of the brightest people that I know, and still wouldn't look at it. And they both recently, within the last, one of them about 3 months ago got orange pilled. And then the other one got orange pilled about 2 weeks ago. And so, again, you think that kind of maybe watching a Michael Saylor, and I love listening to Saylor because the sound money kind of thinking and his understanding of everything from thermodynamics to physics and was the youngest CEO of a company in Wall Street's history, actually, with MicroStrategy. You think that's a good place to start with those guys? Do you have any other names? You got Michael Saylor, you got Robert Breedlove. Max Kaiser, actually, I had a dream about him that my mom introduced me to him and Saylor when I was down in Peru. Actually, I'll tell you about that dream. It was a pretty cool thing. I felt like my mom actually brought me to Bitcoin. And anybody that watches Max is not quite as crazy as he used to be, but I watched because I was into, I got introduced to sound money being gold. I remember the spot. There's certain like spots in our lives, like the Challenger. You weren't, I think you were pretty young if you were born when the Challenger exploded, 9/11, these kind of things. But I remember the spot where I was when I first heard about gold, and that was in 2009. That was from Stuart Wilde, and that kind of started my journey down sound money, right? Which I think, coming full circle back to, you mentioned gold earlier and Bitcoin being better, and we can maybe talk about that here in a little bit. But that brought me to Max Kaiser, and I remember when Max said, I remember the day, I remember where I was standing, where Max said Bitcoin hit $1 today, and so I remember that spot. And anyways, so Max Kaiser's a good one. He's the original orange pill guy. Really, put out the signal, if you will, and really used YouTube back in the days before there were all these channels and people with altcoins and that. Max was just going berserk, and he was very theatrical back in those days. And he was about bust JP Morgan with silver and all that. He transformed, obviously, straight Bitcoin. Okay, so we got Max, we got Michael Saylor, we got Robert Breedlove. Who else could people watch to start to educate themselves? Because I think that so many people, you shouldn't buy anything. I'll leave it on this. One of the best pieces of investment advice I ever got was from Jim Rogers, who's started the Quantum Fund with George Soros. And he said, don't invest in anything that you don't understand. So if you want to understand Bitcoin, who else would you suggest that people kind of tune into?
Another quote I really like is you don't necessarily have to invest in them, but you should maybe be paying attention to things that people hate, don't understand, and can't stop talking about. So Bitcoin is about to be one of those. Tesla is one of those for me right now. We don't have to go down that rabbit hole, or we can. But as far as resources go, I would tell people to do two things. Ray Dalio, Bridgewater, one of the largest, if not the largest, hedge fund managers in the world. I don't even know how many assets under management they have, but if you want to invest with them, it's like $10 million minimum. This is a guy who's gone all over the world and understands it very well and is always looking for the best trade. He's written some pretty good books over the last couple of years, but you really don't even need to read the books. On YouTube, he has a video called Principles for Dealing with like the Changing World Order. It's like a 40, 50-minute video. It's animated if you're a visual learner. And he just walks through the history of the rise and fall of empires. Whether that's the Mongols or the Greeks or the Romans or the Dutch or, when London was the epicenter of the world. You can go back and track basically what happens in history as societies are up and coming. They get too big, they get spread too thin, they debase their currency, the soldiers won't fight, everybody's drunk on red wine, everybody's getting fat. And then you have these rising, hungry powers coming to take your lunch. We could talk about whether or not that's happening in America right now. That would be a tangent. But Dalio has that video on YouTube, and it talks about money a lot, and it mentions the debasement of currency. So I would start there. That is actually a resource that doesn't even talk about Bitcoin, but it's going to get you to think about the rise and fall of empires and how money works and how bubbles work. And then from there, I would just go straight into Robert Breedlove and Michael Saylor, also on YouTube. I'm a huge YouTube guy. You don't need to sit down and watch these. You can just listen to them while you're driving or walking or doing the dishes or whatever. And I think Breedlove and Saylor are up to like 20 episodes. And they're like an hour each. I would just do like the first 5 or 6. And if between Dalio and Saylor, you're not at least questioning the world that you live in or what you thought was true, I don't know. I've never sent those two things to anyone. And usually for people, it's like a big light bulb moment. Another one would be the Bitcoin Standard by Saifedean. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name, but if you like a physical book, that would be a good one as well.
Awesome. Eddie, I'll just keep going. You know me. So
oh yeah, well, listen, I was waiting and hoping for Reid to say Ray Dalio, because that really impactful. If I could echo some of the things that Reid was saying, is just the understanding of how we got here. And to understand that, it's important to be students of the past because, as we all know, things repeat themselves. And so when you can start to see patterns, and that's really what raised in a very sophisticated manner, but also in a very simplistic manner, I would think, is the idea of patterns and how things repeat themselves, that we're not this incredibly difficult to understand culture or society we're pretty simple, and we're led by a handful of tenets, greed being one of them, and being hungry for power is another one, certainly. And we're not talking about thousands and thousands of years ago. We're talking about a couple hundred years ago, right? 300 years ago, where you can really see a very clear line of where we moved as humans from that time till now, and the repeatable nature of what has gone on in our lives. It's easy to see, at least for some of us who are students of this, enjoy it and are able to interpret it accurately and understand it, that, there's a time and a place for something that is what some would still consider disruptive, although yes, it's disruptive, but certainly not far-fetched anymore, by way of, a cryptocurrency, blockchain, et cetera. I think we've reached a level of frustration in so many aspects and segments of our culture that something like this is poised to work really well. And what my mind goes to right away is the carnage that's left behind. So again, if we pull it back to what we're talking about earlier, the robotics, AI, blockchain, you tie all those three together. If you're not on the cusp, or at least an early-ish adopter of these technologies and understanding of these technologies, there's a lot of people who are going to be left behind. And just by nature, AI and certainly will displace a lot of the way we live right now. So that's kind of my always, when I'm talking to close people and friends. I know you mentioned a couple, Alex, that are starting to come over on this side of the fence. That's always my tug at their shoulder, or tug at their shirt and say, like, hey man, pay attention, because this is important. And I care about you, and I'd hate for you to get left behind, and I want you and your family to thrive. And so that's kind of where my space is right now in terms of my headspace, and how I move on a day-to-day basis. Is I love having thoughtful conversations with people, and especially those that already know me and don't have to be convinced of who I am or that I'm a decent human. To really kind of have those conversations and say, this is really happening. What is your position on it, and can I offer some suggestions? Whether you take them or not, it's entirely up to you. But yeah, I think that combination of understanding the history, and those three that were mentioned, we don't want to bombard people with too much information at one time. Certainly, we can probably have this conversation for 3 hours plus about all the different facets. But I think if you start there and have a really foundational understanding of where we've come from, what we've fought for, because we valued it, and see the opportunities. Then if we layer on a entrepreneurial hat that all three of us have, we all work for ourselves. We don't get up every morning, put our pants on. We're not going to make a buck. You see how three of us would, and many others, of course, would start to salivate at this, because you see the different opportunities left and right and center that we could apply our current knowledge to, and really come up with some transitional opportunities that are going to get us from here to there by way of these technologies.
I love where both of you went with this, of like the foundation. Like my moment of understanding sound money was in my bed right in 2009, when Stuart Wilde mentioned gold and what the banks do and all that kind of stuff. Now, right around that time, and I want to ask you about this, and maybe, it's a big subject, but I want to bring this guy up too, because I think he's a really important figure. I know that you know him well, and I think we've talked about him quite a bit. But Raoul Pal talked about the everything code. And one of Raoul's theories is that the financial collapse in 2008, whatever we want to, whenever exactly that happened, was actually that juncture where it all did fail there, that money really died there. And so that was where quantitative easing started, the bailout stuff, when billions started sounding like millions, where millions when I was a kid was a big deal, right? And now millions is not a big deal. Billions is a big deal, but not even really, because now we're talking trillions. We're talking asset managers like BlackRock that are managing trillions. Gold's market cap now I think is 17 trillion. Bitcoin is at 2 trillion. So we're at 0.2 percent of the global wealth is in this asset. So kind of circling back to Raoul Pal and that macro thesis that it broke down then, and now we're in this, and that happened to be right at the election cycle, which overlaps with the debt cycle. Maybe you can talk a little bit about your thoughts around Raoul Pal, because I think he's another great resource. You could literally just Google or, go into YouTube, Raoul Pal Bitcoin, and get kind of his thoughts around that. What are your thoughts around what we're talking about here, which is Ray Dalio, the rise and fall of empires, the death of money, Robert Breedlove kind of stuff? What's your thoughts around that kind of everything code and the election cycle? And now we've got Trump in, the orange hair. I'm wearing orange hair. It's like seems very serendipitous that this is all kind of coming together in a way. I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on Raul and that, maybe kind of bundling this up for us, Reid.
Yeah. Well, just one point to go back. You said, the money kind of broke in 2008 during the GFC. That's certainly true. That is when things started accelerating quite a bit. But really, I think you need to go back a bit further to 1971, 72, when Nixon took us off the gold standard.
Thank you.
Used to be paper money. You could take it to a bank and exchange it to gold. And then they said, no, we're not going to do that anymore. Furthermore, they consolidated like a lot of the gold into the world, into the bank vaults in the United States. So if we're not backed by gold, if I can't take my paper dollars and redeem them for gold at TD Bank or Bank of America, what are we really backed by? I mean, we have like 17 Navy destroyers, so maybe that we are the global by the way, I'm a red-blooded whiskey drinking American, and I'm very grateful to live here and to have grown up for here, and I love all things America. But we are the global reserve currency, and all trade across the world is denominated in our dollars. For now, there are people who are saying, oh, look at BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and a slew of other countries have recently joined, and they've been having meetings, and they're saying, can we get off of the dollar? Maybe not. The average currency lasts like a couple hundred years, and we're coming up on that. But I see I just went on a tangent going back to 1971, and I want to answer your question. Yeah, I want to answer your question about Raoul Pal, though. He's another great guy to get you orange pilled. Raoul was head of like global macro at Goldman Sachs, I believe. So another guy like Dalio, a money manager, his job was, I'm going to take a look at everything in the world, every asset, every country, and my job for my clients is to go find the best trade. He's extremely forward thinking. He's talking about a lot of the things that we're talking about here today: blockchain, Bitcoin, AI, robotics, all this stuff. And he basically has this idea. Alex, you might be able to do a better job explaining this than I could, that everything basically moves in a 4-year cycle. And you can track this to Bitcoin and crypto. It coincides with elections. And as global liquidity rises, as banks print and issue and circulate more money, that is a rising tide that lifts the price of assets. And yeah, he has this idea of the exponential age, and that, basically AI and tech and robotics and crypto are just going to eat everything. And if you go back 10 years and look at it, that's exactly what has happened. Rest in peace to our brother, Peter Schiff, today. By the way, I think it's really important, and I did this. You should always, whether it's Bitcoin or anything else, listen to both sides of the arguments. So if you're looking at us, if you're looking at Alex and Eddie and myself today and saying these guys are Looney Tunes with their digital vaporware or whatever the heck it is, I don't know if I believe them. And you want to go get the counter side of the argument, which you should do in all things in life. Peter Schiff is a great resource I would direct you to. He's extremely sharp. I listen to his podcast every time he puts something out. I agree with him on 95 to 99% of the things that he says. He unfortunately has like a Bitcoin derangement syndrome. He started paying attention to it back in like 2010 when you could have bought it for $1, never did. Says it's a Ponzi, it's a bubble, it's going to zero. Said it would never reach 100,000. Last night while we were sleeping, it did. Um, but yeah, he's if you want the counter argument, I would go listen to him as well. Again, sharp guy. I agree with almost everything he says. Just don't agree with him on Bitcoin. So far, he has been proven very, very much wrong, as he's missed out on the best performing asset of the last 10 years.
I'm a big Peter Schiff fan. Probably not 95% similar to you. He believes in sound money. He understands banking. I give him mad respect because I read his book, Crash Proof. He predicted, so you got to give him major props. I give props where props are due. He predicted the collapse, along with one guy with Asperger's as well there, Burry, who but I think, as I've also studied history, I think that sometimes the ego gets a little bit high and you get a little recency bias, meaning I was right before. And if you don't have humility, and Peter, for lack of a better term, he's got a quite an air of arrogance about him. And I think that EQ of not being willing to say, and I love what you said there, man, of like, look at the other side, at least be willing to look at the other side. And he never did that. So he just went straight Euro Pacific Capital. I'm all gold and silver. He's kind of backed into a corner a little bit, that his whole company is built on selling gold and silver. So kind of like a Mike Maloney in a way, but Mike Maloney, if anybody doesn't know about Mike Maloney, who has a channel called Gold and Silver, but look up Mike Maloney. He wrote a series or a book with Robert Kiyosaki, who is actually one of my very, very early mentors. That's the book that I read that got me into real estate. And anybody that hasn't listened to Kiyosaki, he's another good one to listen to, because he says gold, silver, Bitcoin. So he flipped early. But I think, again, I love what you brought up there, man, because it's always good to at least look at the other side, and that's humility. That's saying, hey, I could be wrong, but at least I'm willing to listen. And I think that's kind of where Peter got a little bit stuck. So, Eddie, do you have any kind of thoughts on that, on maybe on arrogance and on unwillingness? And I'll leave it on this too. I'm sorry, I always say this, but it's like people say, why won't Warren Buffett do it? And Saylor says, because there's no need.
Yeah.
He's got no need. He doesn't need to. He's 90-something years old. He's well established. He doesn't need to. Saylor did it because he had $500 million on his balance sheet, and he saw that melting, and he saw his company that was a SaaS company, a software company. He was going to get eaten up by Oracle or Microsoft, and he just said, "What?" I watched the video. I love watching Saylor, and he told the story. I never heard the story where he was at the pool right in 2020, where everything was just crazy, and they were starting to do trillions in, and he's like, "Tell me about that Bitcoin thing again." To his buddy that he was with the pool, he's like, "I got to figure something out here," and gosh, did he? So Eddie, did you kind of have any thoughts on what we're ruminating on here?
Yeah, I think you both covered it really well. I think just an overarching thought is the idea that, you have to be, it's the EQ, right? So emotional intelligence. It's the self-confidence to say, that might be. I know I've kind of come up in, made my fortune in, et cetera, in this space with these assets, and this is where my knowledge is, and maybe it's a direct competitor to a cryptocurrency, for example. But I think the arrogance to say no, it's going to fail, or I'm not even giving it the time of day. I think it's just foolish in my perspective. I think you should I think, especially as we get older, and Alex, you may probably attest to this as well. Reid, you're still too young. um, but the idea of shedding a lot of this arrogance and this kind of like I know it all is, I think it's really healthy. I think it's really valuable. It served me really well, and so I've taken more of a, it's less of a my way or the highway, and more of a and more of a listening, not a no, that's not going to work, but maybe it does. Maybe this works and this could work as well. And stopping to listen to others who may know something more than I do about a particular topic. So I think overarching, that's kind of where I sit, Alex, as you ask your question, is that we do need to do a lot more and than just, creating that wall and saying, no, it's this way or nothing. Especially as we go into an era that I think requires, or at least benefits from, fluidity and openness.
I've always said that I don't know anything and I can prove it. And furthermore, I reserve the right to change my mind about anything at any time. And I frequently do. I get things wrong and make mistakes almost every day. I've been in commercial real estate for 10 years, and there is not a day that has gone by that somebody has asked me a question and I've said, "Oh my God, I don't, I don't know." But I'm gonna find out for you. The answer is not "I don't know" and good luck. The answer is "I don't know, but I'm on it. Let's figure it out."
Yeah, the answer is almost
I
thank you. Thank you for exposing.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
with all you've done is you've helped me learn. I'm going to now go seek that out, and I'm going to be better, not only for you, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, if that's the case, but certainly for the next
right.
people that I engage.
Yeah, I think a good sign of an intelligent person is being able to admit, that you are wrong and to be able to adapt. Because the reality is, none of us know. We don't know what's going on here. We're spinning around in this rock that's floating through space and blockchain and AI and what is consciousness and how do dreams work and all these big questions and what is God and what is the meaning and what happens when the lights go out. I no idea. So every day I'm putting myself out there in the world and just trying to educate myself and enjoying it along the way. It's fun.
Let's pull out the crystal ball here.
Here we go.
And now let's get into kind of a little bit of where, all of us can now spitball and think about maybe, where things are going to go, and having our wonderful guides along the way, like a sailor. Did you ever read The Mobile Wave? Either of you guys?
Was that Steve, the AOL guy, or was
No,
he the
Sailor.
third wave?
Sailor wrote The Mobile Wave.
Okay.
Super, super obscure book that like nobody read. I read it because I heard him say, I was like, what is this guy about? And I read it in 2020. Now I wish that he actually predicted the mobile wave of social media on phones and everything. He predicted that. And so I was like, man, this guy's like really, really forward thinker. Now, I didn't buy MSTR back then. However, where do you think it's going to go with maybe your thoughts on MicroStrategy? Because they seem to be the kind of company that can be there now, can be a treasury. So if they're a treasury and they own sound money and they're using leverage, so obviously he's very versed in leverage. Do you think that they may start to become a Bitcoin bank or something to that effect?
I think he's kind of started signaling that recently. The answer is actually I have no idea what his plans are. I am just watching this, what I think is probably going to go down as the greatest trade in all of history. What he's done with his infinite money glitch is just absolutely wild. Um, I I mean, Sailor's the guy who orange pilled me. He's absolutely brilliant, but I'm just watching it. Not so much where is it going? That is a good question, but I'm looking at it at this point like what could go wrong? You know, what could go wrong here? Um, I do, in my heart of hearts, think it's going to go down as the greatest trade in all of history. I no predictions for the future of MicroStrategy, but predictions for the future. What I always tell people is we're not going to Mars. We're going into a computer. Um, it's already a done deal. You can try to fight it or be stubborn about it. And I know older people don't like it, but the reality is people are already, screen time is just only up. I think we got the iPhone in like 2008, and it's just a straight up graph since then. The tech's not even good yet. I'm sorry, Instagram's not exciting. I hear TikTok's good. I'm not on it. I hear it's got a great algorithm. I'm not interested. I like going outside and touching grass and being with my friends and having a drink and all that stuff. But as far as I'm concerned, it's already a done deal. People are completely addicted to their phones. They're on them 8, 9, 10 hours a day. To try to deny that the future is digital is just going to be an absolutely massive losing bet, in my opinion.
Okay, no predictions. I like that, and I like bringing it down to earth of touching grass.
Wait a minute, man. I heard an earlier prediction about a million, from 100,000 to a million.
Okay.
Let's let,
Okay, yeah, that you caught him in the past. Good
yeah,
man.
let's touch on that one because here's the question, Reid. Are you and others possibly saying that because that's the next headline? Just like there was a headline once upon a time that said we're going to go to 100,000, and everybody laughed at you and called you a weirdo. You might as well have been an alien yourself. Is a million the headline, or is a million practically reasonably possible?
Yeah, today 100,000 is the headline, right? And we already talked about the media campaign that is probably being unleashed right now. It's 8:20 a.m. in Florida, and all the news networks are firing up, and that's going to be everywhere, and people are going to be putting in calls to BlackRock and Fidelity and all these other institutions saying, "Why didn't you tell me about this?" Well, Jim, we did. Okay, is it too late to get in? Yeah, I, I guess more so I didn't have predictions on what's going to happen with Sailor. I maintain greatest trade in all time, but I'm watching optimistic, cautiously optimistic. Is I found is a good approach to life. Um, as far as Bitcoin, yeah, absolutely, 100K today. Um, we've got a new administration, a new president coming in January. I, you know, I'm an independent. I've been an independent my entire life. I don't like to think about issues, red or blue, black or white. Try not to be tribal about things. I think it's a really bad way to get trapped into, just one way of thinking. And I always want to be neutral and try to approach issues from both sides and try to understand both sides of an argument. And if you do try to do that, what you'll find is there's usually truth on both sides, and the actual truth is usually somewhere in between. So I mentioned that because I said, we've got Trump coming in here and they're calling him the Bitcoin president. And I know a lot of people are emotional about that right now, and I understand why. But that is just new information. You can have a visceral response and get emotional, but if you try to argue with the reality of gravity, you're going to lose every time. Guys, we have new information. This is good for crypto. It's going to be good for other things. It's going to be not great for other things. It is what it is. Leave the emotion out of it. So I think we're coming into the final stage. If we go back to Raoul Pal, the exponential age, the 4-year business cycle, the 4-year global liquidity cycle. The party literally just started, in my opinion. Ethereum looks like it's about to break out. Alts are starting to show signs of life. XRP just did a 5x in like a week, which is crazy. It's basically been a dead coin for 6 years. No offense to the XRP army, but They've got 50,000 users a day. XRP is trading like a meme coin right now. It's got a really good story. It's got a really good narrative. It's got very low network adoption, and it just added almost 100 billion in market cap in like 5 days. So to think that we're not going a lot higher and things that are going to get pretty silly here over the next 6 to 9 months. I think people really need to start paying attention now. I would be wanting to position myself in crypto or tech or the stock market or whatever ahead of Trump coming into the White House. And I think Bitcoin is going to surprise people. My very conservative price target is probably somewhere around 150,000 sometime in 2025. I would say between March and maybe September, October of 2025. 180 is 150 to 180 is kind of my base case. So if Trump comes out and does I think the U.S. controls like 200,000 Bitcoin right now. He did just move a lot of that to a Coinbase wallet. There's some people speculating that Biden administration, as a parting gift, is going to sell that. If they do, it's about $2 billion worth. Somebody like Saylor is going to come in and absorb it. It'll send price down in the short term, but long term, it's no reason for concern. I think this cycle, we could probably easily, if things really get squirrely, go to 200, 250. Are we going to get the classical 70 to 80% retrace after that? Probably not. I think we've got a relentless bid from these ETFs coming in now. This is a lot more mainstream now. I don't really see a 80, 90% correction like in cycles in the past. If anything, maybe it would cut in half. So if it runs to 200 and goes back to 100, should you buy today? Sure. My long-term prediction after this cycle, I think by 2030, we probably hit 1 million per coin, and that puts us about a little beyond the market cap of gold.
Let me ask you this. So you went into a couple different things there, and I thought you were going to go to this one spot. But let's come back to the meme coin thing, because I do want to. I want to give some people some education.
Yeah.
Only invest in things you understand. And I'm not saying that I understand memes. And that's a lot of the reason we wanted to have you on, is because you understand that space a little better. And I want to unpack that in a second. But circling back and staying on Bitcoin. Senator Lummis, Wisconsin, put a bill before Congress to put Bitcoin on the U.S. balance sheet as a strategic reserve, buying 250,000 Bitcoin a year for 4 years, and then having a mandate that they won't be sold for 20 years. Okay. So 2 questions. One, what if that happens? What do you think? So now then, game theory cares out. So I want to talk a little bit about. I want to talk a little bit about game theory, right? It's because it's a very pertinent thing. Anybody look up the prisoner's dilemma? I don't want to get into that, but game theory is the basis. Is you look up the prisoner's dilemma and you will understand game theory at base level. So what do you think it would go to if that bill was to pass? A, or 1, and number 2, what do you think the chances are percent-wise that it actually does happen?
I would expect that if that was announced and or passed, definitely if it was passed, that you would see what I like to call an omega god candle. A god candle is when you go up like 20% in a day. It's happened several times in Bitcoin's history. If we really do get a United States of America national strategic Bitcoin reserve, which I do think could happen, I don't know that it'll be next year, but I do think it may or may not be inevitable over the next couple of years. I think you would see Bitcoin jump $100,000 in price on that announcement. The game theory, Alex, you would probably do a better job explaining this to me, but one thing I would say on that is Nayib Bukele, who is a very young, forward-thinking, smart guy, is the president of El Salvador. He's done a fantastic job with that country. They just instituted like a zero crime policy. They had a big gang problem. They just came in and used the military to just completely clean up the entire country. And El Salvador went from being like a very dangerous place to be, a place you would not want to travel to now it is like a tourist paradise. And they have like one of the lowest crime rates, like in South America. Probably better than a lot of cities in the United States right now, to be honest. Actually, definitely, that's true. Um, but what they did is they did what we're talking about right now. They announced a strategic reserve, and obviously they don't have the buying power that we do. And at the time, everyone mocked them because, like, oh, look at this little country, El Salvador, haha, they're buying this magic internet money. And now it's a much better place to live, and they've done very well to buy that Bitcoin when they did. Why I'm mentioning El Salvador is when they did it, everybody was like, who cares? You know, it was like a joke. Well, you just saw Brazil announce that they're considering it. And Microsoft, the company, you know, which would be, you know, if MicroStrategy is El Salvador, Microsoft is the United States as far as how much capital they can deploy goes, right? Is Microsoft going to pass it? I don't know. What I'm trying to circle to is if the US does it, now all of a sudden a switch is flipped because the United States does, everybody else watches and everybody else listens and everybody else tries to mimic to a certain extent, not necessarily everything. But if the United States comes out and says, hey, we're doing this and passes the bill, all of a sudden, like you said, Alex, the game theory kicks on and every country on earth that has the ability to is going to try to be adding this to their balance sheet. And yeah, 100,000 in a day, the Omega God candle, and a million. I mean, my price target would for $1 million Bitcoin would probably be sometime between 2030 and 2032. It could happen a lot sooner. And Alex, maybe I'll kick it back to you. You've talked about maybe the cycle is different and maybe it's a bit of like a super cycle where things are going to accelerate a lot quicker than people are thinking or prepared for.
Mm. I don't know if you're talking about the stunted cycle, like kind of Rawls views that it was the stunted cycle that happened in 2020 because there was so much liquidity that came in earlier. And then I think it was the 2017, 2016, 17 cycle where the spike happened a little bit later as the liquidity came in a little bit later. But I'm not going to let you off the hook here, man. What percent chance?
Okay, yeah, right.
Do you think it actually happens?
In 2025, I think it's probably pretty low probability. I think there is, it's an idea that's gaining traction, and that probably makes sense. My reservation is just the bureaucracy that is Washington and the speed at which things move. I don't even know what that looks like, if Trump could just come in and mandate it, or if it would have to go through Congress, or if it would. I think you have to convince a lot of people that it's the right thing to do. I'm an easy convince. Unfortunately, I don't get to vote, right? So assign a probability to it in 2025 that we have a US strategic Bitcoin reserve. I'll say 25%. Yeah. I really hope I'm wrong. I hope it's a done deal. I hope it's a done deal, and me and you and Eddie's bags are packed, and hopefully we can bring along as many people for the ride. Have you guys, Alex? You mentioned your two friends that you recently saw the light within the past couple of months or so. I have a couple friends that I'm very, very proud to have on this journey with me. Have you guys found that you're able to talk to people about this stuff who don't have an understanding of it and get them to see the light, or what's your experience been with that?
I've been trying to come from a place, especially with my team. So I did Orange Pill, a guy on my team that was put some money into Doge because Elon said it on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's cool, man. I was like, he made some, and he didn't even look at of course, he didn't look at the wallet forever because it went down to whatever cents, and then he went like, hey, man, I got this Robinhood account. And I was like, look, I did a whole thing on educating on the ascension of the money supply, and it overlays with the S&P. It
Yes.
overlays
Yes.
with the NASDAQ. It overlays with real estate.
Same graph.
It also it's like left and to the right and up. The
Yeah.
money supply is increasing, therefore assets are increasing. Gold. I was still a big gold bug. Gold bugs, love you out there. 30% this year was great for gold bugs, right? Like, I mean, that looked awesome. 5 years ago, people would be like, finally. But then you look at Bitcoin and you're like, oh my God, I got my lunch eaten there.
Yeah.
But anyways, I try to come from a place of education and people with open minds. So I have been able to, I don't try to convince anybody. I'm just like, take a look. Just take a look. And here's some people. And I love what you guys brought up, the rail, like watch Ray Dalio or just watch this video and understand what is going on with, and it's not money, it's currency.
Yeah.
That's the difference. So currency, is a dollar or is a piece of paper that actually went back to represent gold in a vault because people didn't want to carry gold around and get whacked on the head and the gold taken away from them. There was IOUs, but those IOUs eventually turned into paper money, which if you look, I'm like, look on the dollar that's in your, well, kids don't carry dollars anymore. Everything's digital, which is very fun. Oh, what is a note? A note is an agreement to pay. It says it right on the thing. Like, it's like the bigger the lie, the more people will believe it, right? Type deal. So I've had moderate success. I'm very proud of these two gentlemen that are very, very dear friends of mine that finally kind of, one of them actually bought MSTR just because he wanted to be my trading buddy. But then when he saw it starting to go up and to the right, number go up, he's like, holy shit, what is this thing? And I'm like, dude, you got to understand the underlying asset, especially because he has a tendency to trade stuff. And I'm like, dude, this is not a stock that you trade. This is a stock that you hold. There might be a time where you dollar cost average out of it into something that has a bigger upside. That's a whole other thing. I'm not a trader. I do a little bit. I made a good trade with my EXP stock in that, and I love EXP. But I was like, man, I just see a much bigger upside on this thing. So to your point, or I don't know if anybody made this point, it's like go in early, go in hard.
Yeah,
and
that's like a James Invest Answers, right? He's another good resource.
Well, he got that from Soros.
Okay.
So that's not just his. So Soros, I was watching, you mentioned Dalio. Anybody else watch Stanley Druckenmiller? I mean, this guy for 30 years has never had a down year. Okay. So might want to listen to a guy like this. And I was listening to a podcast from him the other day, and he was talking about the lesson that he learned from Soros when Soros shorted the pound. And he said Soros did a bunch of research, had massive conviction, and went in big on that trade. So, I'm sure maybe Soros got that from somebody else. But, James on Invest Answers, which is also an amazing channel. I mean, I was listening. Did you see him this morning? He went live last night.
Yeah,
He was going to drink the bottle of whiskey when
right.
Bitcoin went over 100,000. He doesn't drink whiskey, and he's sitting there drinking Johnny Walker Black. He's like, this tastes like paint thinner, But he was like, here's to you all. But anyways, I digress a little bit there. But Eddie, you're taking a backstage here. Reid and I are overshadowing. What do you?
No. I love it. That's the living, breathing element of our pod and our ability to just kind of sit back and chime in when it makes sense. But I mean, to answer Reid's question, the way it is in my ecosystem is a little more familiar, which is family. So my background is from Mexico, and I have a lot of basically everyone. My mom and dad were the only two that left Mexico out of a very large traditional family. So a lot of kids, and then a lot of They had a lot of kids, which is my line of cousins, which is a lot of us. And then, of course, they've all had kids and everything. And so we all stay in touch. A lot of us, a huge portion of us stay in touch via WhatsApp. And so, we have our group chats. And yeah, along the way, I would say maybe 4 years ago, we started to have a conversation about, cryptocurrency and Bitcoin specifically, not so much the blockchain, because I was still at that point, I was still really trying to understand I understood what blockchain was, but I was trying to think about its upside and where else it would be applied outside of just, currency. And so, but regardless, the conversation, I think, and appropriately so, for the level of their understanding at the time, was to start with cryptocurrency and specifically Bitcoin and what it was, just the APCs of it. That was really helpful because obviously it's my family and I love, close family and friends to succeed with me. So that's kind of been my tribe in terms of conversations. But obviously anytime it comes up, in conversation, and I will say that most of the people in that chat group have put in, even if it was meager, but now it's not so meager because some of them started actually investing 2 or 3 years ago. So it's not really that meager, although maybe they entered in a small amount. We know what
good. Get off zero, right?
It's exactly right.
Yeah.
That was actually a sentiment that I shared with them. Well said, Reid, is that, just get off zero, just get it. Don't think about the train has left me. Don't think about, but I should have bought it when it was here. None of that should apply to you. There's still so much upside. And most importantly for me and for them and for conversations I have is get in the space, just understand it. Even if you're not even buying necessarily a lot or any, even understanding what it is and what it's going to do for us and how we're all going to be able to benefit from it, I think is just a strong play to get into right away. But yeah, that's been the way I've kind of worked it into, sharing it with others, and it's paid dividends, literally and figuratively.
I think this is a perfect segue. Thank you for that. Just as a point onto that, it's like, there's one thing to orange pill some. Here's a little story for you. My uncle, my dear uncle, who's like my dad now, and has been a father figure in many ways, and is old school. And I've been kind of trying over the years. I mean, I'm going back to 2017 kind of stuff, and that's when I bought my first Bitcoin. But I, was at Thanksgiving there, and I'm trying to explain it, and he's like, "Oh, it's a scam." But my cousin, his daughter, she bought one with her boyfriend at the time. And he's been saying to her, sell it. Oh, you made your money, like sell it. And I'm like, and look, it's not like trying to orange pill him. I'm like, I guess this is my story, which I want to go into this next thing about memes. Okay. Understanding what's going on. What's the difference between a meme and Bitcoin? Specifically, right? And maybe even Solana and an Ethereum, kind of a layer 2 that has actual user application and so forth. So I was just like, pup, at least don't tell her, like, I want to say to people out there, if somebody's telling you to do something and that person doesn't understand it, even though you respect them, maybe you don't want to listen to them in this particular reign, because even though they have the best intention in mind, because he was like, hey, sell it and buy a house. And I was like, because he's thinking house, he's from old school, awesome. And a house is, everybody should have a castle. Yeah. I'm not saying that.
Yes.
But, this is digital capital. So this is like your house in Manhattan or wherever, as Saylor says, can you send $100 million worth of New York real estate to stop back at the speed of light? You can't do it. You think of it like, this is my house. This is where I'm storing value. So kind of coming into that, man, can you help people understand out there that they're going to have a buddy? I have one right now that was like, my son just invested in XRP. It's going berserk. What do you think? And I was like, what I said was, I didn't crap on XRP. I did a little bit in the end because he kept pushing about like, well, it's da-da-da. And I said, does your son understand what it is and what it does? And he's like, no, his friend does though. And I'm like, I bet his friend doesn't know because his friend was a friend of a friend that just said, buy this thing because of this story. Gary Gensler's gone. The lawsuit's no longer. XRP is going to go to the moon. And it's like the story of this gets somebody to buy, but they don't understand the underlying use case. And in this particular instance, sorry, XRP tribe, it really isn't a big use case. It's more of a meme coin.
And I saw three TikToks on it.
Hack the audience.
And I saw 3 TikToks on it.
Like, I just see a graph going like this, so I want to get on that graph. Like, can you help the audience? Because I know you're a big meme guy, but you also
Yes.
you understand that's a degen in this space is like degenerate gambler. It's
I'm a DJ.
I got a problem. Like, just understand the difference. So, can you unpack that, bud?
Sure. Let me preface by stating that Bitcoin is the only crypto asset that I own that I consider an investment. I'll hold it 20, 30 years. I hope to have children one day and give some of it to them. Everything else for me is just a trade, Alex and Eddie. The difference between an investment and a trade is really just time frame. When I say that I trade cryptocurrency, most people would think, oh, this guy's got 8 monitors in his house and he just watches graphs all day and he's pressing buy and sell 1,000 times a day. I have friends who do that and they're brilliant and I love that for them. I don't want to spend my day looking at a computer, being anxious, trying to get in and scalp 10, 15% and worry about, oh no, it's going down. I trade cycles, and what we do is you mentioned the Soros, get in early, get in hard. I trade a cycle. So when you heard Raoul Pal and James Invest Answers talking about, hey, look at the Solana network adoption, this is going to be a good one for this cycle. I remember seeing you in the gym actually, and we were kind of talking about yeah. Yeah, I think Solana is like, 12,
I think
13.
you caught it.
Yeah.
You counted 8 or 12.
I bought a little bit of it under 10. My biggest buy orders are at like 12, $13. And, today it's 240. I don't know what the multiple is on that. I don't care. I haven't sold any. We'll revisit it in 2025. But what I was getting at, so Bitcoin, we've talked a lot about it. It's a digital store of value. It's digital gold. It's digital real estate. It is a Swiss bank account in the sky that no one can touch. Eddie, you talked about your family being in Mexico, and we kind of already talked about people who are less privileged in different parts of the world tend to understand this better because in America we have this mindset that can't happen here. Well, it can and it might. So you might want to have a backup plan, not to be like an alarmist or anything. Like I said, I'm grateful to live here. So Bitcoin is my only investment. If you want to go further down the risk curve, you can go on a Coin Market Cap or a CoinGecko and scroll through the top 100. Even if you're not really into crypto, you'll see a bunch of names you recognize: Ethereum, Cardano, XRP, Solana, whatever. These are the big ones. Pick one and start educating yourself on it. And, maybe you buy some, maybe you buy a little Bitcoin, a little Ethereum, a little bit of Dogecoin. If you're into the memes, if you want to be a degen. By the way, that's an important point to make. You don't want to bet the farm on any of these things, but you can have a small.
I didn't say get in. Yeah.
Yeah, you can have a small percentage of your portfolio and have a little bit of fun and trade and buy a little bit of Dogecoin and maybe it goes up 3x and you're excited about that and you're in group chat with friends like that. That's part of the space. Like you don't have to be serious all the time. You're allowed to. We're the future of money and we're. This blockchain is going to revolutionize everything. Yeah, great. Of course it is. We believe that. But, you can speculate on dog tokens as well. And you might with a small percentage of your portfolio. It's enjoyable and you can make a lot of money. I referred to XRP as a meme coin earlier. It's not. It's trading like one right now, 5x in like a week. I really hate to harp on XRP because there's thousands of others that are awful. But we can just use this as the example, the memetics of it. It's got a very good story. It is going, what do they say? It is going to replace the global SWIFT system, which is how all these banks communicate with each other around the world. And they're going to adopt XRP for some reason, even though right now it has 50,000 users a day, and half of the supply is locked up and held by the company. And every time the price comes up, they just issue a bit of that and print it and convert it to cash. And I don't know, it just sounds like a Ponzi to me. It doesn't mean it can't do well. I'm actually rooting for the XRP army. But what you need to understand with any of these things is there's, 20, 30,000 different cryptos. Again, 15, 20, 30 of them are going to be the rails that the financial future is going to be built on. I think the three of us probably agree on that. But most of, for right now, the adoption is not quite there. It's getting there. But right now what's happening is good stories are being told. You might even call Bitcoin or the United States dollar or gold a meme coin. Gold's been a meme coin for 5,000 years. It's been money. The US dollar is a meme coin. Birkin bags and Ferraris and Rolexes are meme coins. These are good stories. These are good brands. These are ideas that we have told to people, and people have bought into them. Alex, I don't know if you wanted me to go into like actual meme coins or.
I just want people to understand, and I'm going to give. Let's have a little discussion here, because I want the like. You believe that. That's really interesting that you said that the dollar is a meme, that the gold is a meme. You somewhere
Sitting on that analogy as well. I think that was really bright
in my brain right now.
I like
I want to unpack. So
let's see.
Let's define.
Yeah.
Let's define what. So back to Bitcoin. Bitcoin is money. What is money? According to Aristotle, fungible, right? So that's why you wouldn't bring oil or wheat or something like that. That's why they wouldn't be money, right? It's divisible, right? So it's down to 100 million satoshis in one Bitcoin, right? So very, very divisible, portable, right? So you, like, to your point, you can put it in your pocket, seed phrase in your brain, go anywhere in the world, portable. And these are all attributes that gold has, right? It is durable, right? So you can sink gold to the bottom of the ocean, bring it up 2,000 years later, still a piece of gold. Brush off the algae, it's still a piece of gold. And the last one, which actually is, Bitcoin has all those attributes, yet one of the pieces that's very, very important, like why seashells are not money, because they're not scarce, right? So it has to be those 5 attributes in order to be considered money. And that's why gold has stood the test of time, a la Peter Schiff, right? And some of the other older school guys, the Jim Roger guys and that kind of thing. And so that's why Bitcoin does all of those things better, faster.
Yeah.
Right? Now, talk about what do you mean by that that's a meme? Because, like, there are very, very few things on the planet that have ever stood the test of time, gold really being the only one, and now Bitcoin. So what gives?
Gold has been money for almost 5,000 years now. It's what the Romans would have paid the soldiers to fight with. It checks a lot of the boxes that you mentioned just there, most of them. And it has served as it. Let me preface this by saying that I like gold and I own it, and I will not fight that. It is in the lexicon. It has been money for 5,000 years. I don't think that's going to change. The reason I called it a meme coin is because you have to look at the story that was crafted around it. We pulled it out of the ground. It's shiny. It's going to last forever. We can pay people with it. We can chop it up and shape it into these little coins. Gold, from a utility standpoint, doesn't have any value, really. Yeah, like you can use it in electronics or you can put it in people's teeth, but what is it really? Is it's a story that's been sold that it's money for 5,000 years, and now we're making I don't know what the major use cases are for it outside of that. Like, Jewelry, like rap videos, no disrespect to those. But there's really not a lot of utility in it. It's just been a good story for a very long time, and now we have a better story. And same thing with the dollar. The dollar was backed by gold. Now it's not backed by anything except the Navy destroyers, right? Which I said earlier. But I guess like the main point I'm driving at here, if you go read like a Yuval Harari, Sapiens, Imagined Realities, brands, Porsche, whatever designer bag, gold, Bitcoin, the dollar, whatever. All of these things have value because everybody thinks they have value, and that's it. That's all.
Yeah. So it's the story. Gold fulfills the story of being money.
Yes,
Can we meet at that?
we can. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I don't need to. You know, I get a little bristled up with with gold, and that was a really interesting thing that you said, and I see what you're saying. I 100%.
Yeah, it's a really good story. It's been a really good story for a long time, right? And everybody believes it. Is that changing? I don't know.
I don't know. I still keep it. I
Same.
have a really hard time. I remember. I mean, I gave you some of that silver. It's like, or I've given people silver and had them touch gold, and there's just, I don't know, man. There's something that happens because, I actually had someone touch some the other day that was more bullion. They've had touched gold jewelry and stuff, but that's watered down, right? It's not 99.9% pure. That there's something that happens when you touch that 99.9, whether it's silver or gold, because that something in that probably was an Aztec or was in a Roman's pocket or what, I don't know what it is. There's this certain, and I do believe in energy and spirit and all of that and the kind of akashic record of things. But anyways, we digress. So
I know exactly what you're saying. It would be hard to put it into words, but I know exactly what you're saying.
It's hard to describe a feeling,
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, just for the audience, so the difference between, let's say, a Bitcoin as a store of value, straight up, right, for all the reasons I outlined with that money and Aristotle's definition of money. Then you've got the stuff like Solana, Ethereum, maybe you can mention, XRP supposedly, and some AVAX, and these others that have an actual use case other than the story, right? So would you say there's almost kind of like three categories that you would put these in? What do you think about that?
I think the main use case for all of them is NGU, which is number go up. People like to come to this space and they hear about the Bitcoin billionaires and the Ethereum millionaires, and they want to come and they want to do that. And I don't want to sound like a cynic here. I've been studying this space for 4 years, and I keep harping that 20 or 30 of these projects are going to be the Amazons and eBays and whatever else that emerged out of the 2000s. .com. So I really do believe this technology is going to change the world. I just don't know right now. I'm not smart enough to pick them. I look at network adoption right now. That looks like Ethereum and Solana are probably the leaders. Solana has, I think, 3 million daily active users. A lot of those are people buying and selling meme coins. Just going to be honest. That is one of the, that is,
That's what I'm saying.
yeah.
There's a use case for the meme coins. Like, could you use a meme coin to do something other than trade?
The meme coins are emerging neo religions and cults that are forming online. If you go into crypto YouTube or crypto Twitter and look up a Doge or a Pepe or a dog with hat, what you will find is that you have a absolutely avid fan base of 100,000 users who are promoting their new religions all day, all night while you're sleeping. They're working for your bags. And we have we're at a time in history where people are spending more time online and they're moving away from religion, and anxiety and depression and loneliness are all at all-time highs, and that's making me a little emotional to say that right now. But that is the reality that we're living in right now. And what is happening is people are finding a sense of community online. And as dumb as it sounds to say out loud, that I can join the Dog with Hat community, if there is a 16-year-old or an 18-year-old or a 45-year-old right out there right now that is going through a hard time, and they're spending all their time online, and they're joining these communities, they're in Telegrams, they're in Discords, they're on Twitter, and they are finding a place where they belong, and gaming and gambling and esports and all these things are just ripping right now because people are desperate. People are so beat down right now. They're just looking for any dopamine. They just want to feel good. They want to feel like they belong somewhere. And also, like, no one has any money, you know? Like people are going to go down the risk curve because they can't afford to buy a home, because real estate has doubled in the past 4 years, because we're printing all this money and sending it all over the world for whatever. And I'm not going to make a comment on what's right or wrong, or whether that's right or wrong, but man, I don't, I'm trying to tie this all together right now, but
No, dude, I love this. You really opened my mind a lot right there. The use case is a feeling of belonging.
yeah, yeah. If you don't have any friends, and we're spending more time online, and you go and find all your friends online, and you're joining this community and you're making money while you're doing it, that's going to be really big.
Thank you, Eddie. I think, yeah, we could start to go down a really crazy rabbit hole with that conversation, which I would really welcome that conversation. That being said, we usually take these things for about an hour and a half. Reid, thank you so much, man, for coming on, for your insight. We didn't even get into commercial real estate.
Yeah.
You got a little bit into real world assets. Maybe we'll bring you back on and just talk about, if we can, commercial real estate, and not go off onto community. And what a wonderful part to end there, because, you know, friends, a really thoughtful discussion about things. That's again why Eddie and I aligned. I think, you know, I met you in a bar, Reid, when you'd had a few in you, and I was just like, wow, this guy's really, really, really smart and cool. He's much taller and better looking than me. I want to get to know him more. And but no, all of that aside, I again respect your, you know, we kind of really got on with, like, you work really hard, Reid, and you make your calls. You're not out there some guy just trading stuff online. You're out there, you know, making things happen. Eddie, he put a beautiful deal together for ARC of the Martin County, for a center for them, for people with special needs. And he and I met up there, and he heard a little presentation that I did on my daughter, and you know, I could tell, I mean, he's just a heartfelt person. He's not just this guy that's online trading stuff and that, but you're very, very, have a large.
That's right. Yeah, Dale Armor, my father.
There
Dale,
you go.
Dale though, yeah, Dale knows everyone, man. He's you should have him on. He's the master networker. I don't like going places with him, just because you're gonna get stopped by, like, going to the gym with him. You can't get a workout in. He just knows every person. By the way, I say that like I love people. I really like people, but it's hard to work out with that guy because he knows everybody. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're going to have you back on, Reid. Thank you so much for your time. Eddie, my dear friend, thank you so much for embarking on this journey with me, and God love everybody out there. All we want to do is to educate, inspire, and have you think about these things a little bit and understand them more, understand life more, understand, Eddie and I do a lot of real estate stuff, but I think this is a space that is not going away, to Reid's point. And you can either get on the bus and be a part of that, or, hey, God bless you if you want to stay behind. But we welcome you on this journey with us. And again, Reid, thank you so much for your time, man.
Thanks for having me, guys. It was awesome. Would love to do a round two. And to anyone out there watching, just get off zero. Start educating yourself, and everywhere you walk through life, just be kind. Just pick people up where you can. We all have very busy lives. It can be hard to get through a day sometimes, but if you can just inject a little bit of kindness into the world, that's how you go about changing it.
That's why we had you on. What a great way to end, man.
Cool. Thanks, guys. See you next time.